Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to our next 6 weeks. You made it to the third 6 weeks. So we are going to be starting a new unit. The focus in this unit is going to be on experiences and empathy. If you don't remember what empathy is, that's okay, because we're going to talk about that today. So far, we've done a unit on identity, and we've done a unit on like horror and fear, suspense, a little bit of mood and tone thrown in there. We're going to go ahead and go back to this idea of identity briefly today and use that as a building block to start talking about why experiences and empathy really matter. So in a way, this unit is sort of going deeper, but at the same time, farther than our first unit. Our first unit focused on you, who you are, what makes you you. We're going to use that to build off of to talk about what makes us us as human beings and why that point of view is really pretty important in today's world. So here we go. So first up, you guys need to know, make sure you watch this whole video in its entirety first. And after the video's over, then go to your student work and you can complete the Jamboard that you click on to make a copy for yourself. So you don't need to pause in this video to answer anything. Just go ahead and watch it all the way through and then go to your Jamboard. Okay, so the very first thing I want you guys to think about is back to that idea of personal identity. I want to know, what are some of the events, some of the memories, and some of the places that made you, who you are. It's not just personality traits. It's going to be things that we've lived through, things we've thought and gone through, places we've visited, homes that we have shared. So I want you to think for a second, for you personally, what are the events, memories, and places that made you, who you are today? So we're going to continue zooming in for just a second, looking back at identity. Your individual identity, your personal identity is basically what makes you who you are. So if you're trying to figure out what personal identity is, the question you ask yourself is, how can I distinguish myself from somebody over there? What makes me different from everybody else around me? Because we all have our own unique individual identity, even identical twins, right? So I want you guys to think about, well, how can you distinguish you from someone else? Because now, friends, we're going to zoom out. So let's start zooming out, because identity is not just an individual thing. Because I want you to think about the question, do you share parts of your identity with other people? Well, yeah. Heck yeah, right? Maybe you're interested in soccer and you share that part of your identity with other people that like soccer. Or maybe you're both in athletics and you're both part of this warrior athlete team, right? That's a shared identity. Or maybe one side of your family is really, really close. So not only are you related by blood, but you share this like identity and some of the same memories with each other. So we totally share some of our identity with others. The crazy thing is we can keep zooming out. So let's look at that real quick. Think about our identity as Watauga Middle School. Everybody here, whether you came from another school since 6th grade or you've been here the entire time, right now, if you are watching this, you are a Watauga Middle School warrior. So that means that we have that shared identity of like knowing the building and knowing some of the teachers and some of the experiences we've had in the years that you're here. Same thing with Texas. Whether you move from another state, no matter what, you're in Texas now. So you might identify as a Californian, but since you're in Texas now, you're also a Texan. Being a Texan doesn't necessarily mean liking Longhorns and cowboy boots and country music, right? Being a Texan means that we're all from the same place. We're all in the same boat when it comes to, we have like the same governor. We have some of the same local news here in North Texas. And there's some things that we like that are similar. A lot of us are also very proud of Texas, even if we don't like the cowboy boots and the country music thing. If we go to California or we go to New York, we'll gladly say usually we're from Texas. It's the same idea with our country. So with the United States of America, even somebody that might live in California or Montana, poor California, I'm always picking on them, or Florida or New York or Oklahoma, we all have that shared part of our identity too. Even if you were born in a different country, you're here now. So you can have multiple identities in different countries, but one of those identities that we all share is American. Whether you're an American citizen or not, you live here and we're sharing some of the exact same experiences. For example, our crazy election that's been going on, right? So I want you guys to think about what it really means to be in America. Some of it's all ideas and some of it is all experiences. So I want to zoom out just a little bit more. So here's some food for thought. Every country in the world, every nation has its own cultural identity. So the United States has a cultural identity. Guinea, Africa has its own cultural identity. Russia has its own cultural identity. Poland, Finland, UK, Zimbabwe, Brazil, El Salvador, China, everybody has their own cultural identity. So this fact that we have this identity that we all share with the people in our nation is something we all actually have in common. So here's an interesting thought. It's a little jarring if you spend time thinking about it. It's the idea that you could have been, like you personally, you as you are now, you could have been born anywhere. You could have been born anywhere. So if you had been born in Brazil or Nicaragua or Zimbabwe or New Zealand or India, and that's where you were living right now, how would that affect your cultural identity? Do we really have a say on the cultural identity that we are born into, at least at first? So that's kind of an interesting idea. A lot of people think very American-centric, centric meaning like the center. So people think, America's the best. We are the center of the world, basically. And some of our maps even show that. But if you pause to think about the idea that you could have been born anywhere, and right now you could be living in Germany or in South Africa, really, or even somewhere else in America, like Alaska, really would affect how you viewed the world. So this idea, the concept that you're starting to understand this bigger picture, is called cultural awareness. Cultural awareness is not just being aware that there are other cultures, but it's also this respect that depending on where somebody's born, they have different cultural identity, right? But wait, there's more. Because every single person on planet Earth also shares something in common. We are all not only human beings, part of the same species, but we also all share this little blue and green planet. And it's all we've got right now, right? I mean, maybe in the future we'll be able to go somewhere else, but right now, this planet is all we've got. And we share that as part of our identity. If you're thinking, no, we're way too different. Cultures are all spread out. We have nothing in common. I want to show you guys something. So in 1977, we sent out 2 space probes called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. We sent them out with the goal of having them explore our solar system and carry some of our music and some of our culture out past the solar system. And just a few years ago, they actually left the solar system. They've been traveling all this time. But after a few years, we had Voyager turn around with its camera and face back towards Earth while it was still in the solar system, because we wanted to get a selfie. We wanted to know what we looked like. So we're expecting something that looked a little bit like this, right? Because this is always how we look at it in textbooks. Oh no. So here's a picture of us past Saturn. This is a real picture. Here's Saturn up here. Here are the rings. And then looking past Saturn out at what looks like this little blue star is not a star at all. In fact, this object is quite close. It just happens to be very small. This is planet Earth. This tiny little blue dot is planet Earth. In fact, there's this phenomenon known as the pale blue dot. Carl Sagan is the one that you're going to hear talking in this video, but Voyager actually took this picture. This is planet Earth's first selfie. It took this picture, and there we are right there. This little ray of light here is called a mote of dust. It's basically debris that is left over from when our planet originally formed. That pale blue dot is us. Every human being in the existence of ever was born and has lived right there in that pale blue dot. When you start to think about the fact that we are just one planet around one star, and there are hundreds of billions of galaxies out there with hundreds of billions of stars in each one, starts making me feel a little bit small, which is kind of crazy. So I want you guys to watch this video and see what you think.
Now that we've helped people customize this.
Right after this message from our sponsor. All right, here we go. Oh, look, we got 2 ads. We get lucky, guys. Sorry.
Is grammatically correct.
this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pygmy dot, the only one we've ever known.
So I love the way he ends that, the idea that to him it underscores the importance to treat each other more kindly because we are all we've got. And we all share the pale blue dot in common, and we all share the idea that we're human and the fact that we're human together. So what does this mean for us? Well, at first, it makes me feel really, really small. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an astrophysicist, said that when he looks at the stars, though, he feels really big, not small. So I want you guys to think back to this concept in science, that atoms cannot be created or destroyed. We can't create atoms, we can't destroy atoms. All the atoms that we have in this universe were all the atoms we had when things first came into being. We can't create them or destroy them. So the question is, if your atoms weren't created, where did your atoms come from that are in your body right now? Because you went from being about this big in the womb to this big when you were born to the size that you are now. So all of your atoms have come from somewhere else. If you guys have ever heard the phrase, you are what you eat, that is because that's where we get our atoms when we eat food. They're just rearranged and recombined chemically. You guys might have learned about that a little bit or are learning about that in science right now to make you who you are. So where did those atoms come from? Well, maybe from grass or from the chicken, right? Okay, where did those atoms come from? Planet Earth. Planet Earth, where did those atoms come from? So if you keep tracing it back and back and back, scientists have discovered that every single element in our entire universe has been basically forged inside of a star. They're like these giant ovens that combine elements and smash them together. When you take two atoms and you put them under intense heat and pressure, they will go nuclear and they will combine their nuclei, which is really cool. So if you take two hydrogen atoms, smash them together, you get a helium atom. So out in the universe, hydrogen exists in the wild, the most simple atom. But every atom that's above hydrogen was forged inside of a star. So the carbon that's in your body, the nitrogen that's in your body, the oxygen in your lungs, all of that was formed from a star. And because we're so small in the vast cosmic arena, meaning that planet Earth is such a tiny little pale blue dot, we think that pretty much every atom that ended up becoming planet Earth used to be a part of the same star. So yeah, we might be really close to our family members because we're related by blood and genetics. But even smaller than that, even smaller than cells that carry our DNA, are the atoms that make up our very existence. And the atoms that make up me and the atoms that make up you, that you might have in your hair or in your hand, all come from, more likely than not, one or two of the same stars that exploded once upon a time, because stars have a life cycle, and scattered their atoms out into the universe. They ended up coming together for planet Earth to make you. So you get to hold on to these atoms for your brief lifetime. But what's cool is that you and me and everybody else on planet Earth, we all share that in common. So on an atomic level, we are all related to each other. Not genetically, but atomically, which is a much smaller level. I love this quote that kind of summarizes that concept. It says, "We are part of this universe. We are in this universe. But perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us." So there's this quote by Carl Sagan that says, "We are made of star stuff. We are made of the atoms that were forged inside the hearts of dying stars." We are the universe, guys. That's what your atoms are. So for this brief 100 years, you get to hold on to some of those atoms. And they come together to make you you and make us human beings. So I'm going to continue this in our next section in a very short video. So just some things to think about. Alrighty, friends, I will see you in the next section. Bye for now.